What started as a conflict between just two countries, well, it's now dragging the entire Middle East into this massive vortex. What began as a standoff between the US and Iran has absolutely spiraled into a sprawling, multi-front war with some really devastating consequences. So let's break down how this whole thing got so out of control and where it might be headed next.
And then this happens. A statement from the U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. And suddenly everything changed. Look, before this, everyone was talking about nuclear programs, right? Regional power plays. But this single quote completely reframed the whole thing. It injected this incredibly volatile religious angle into what was already a powder keg. And as you can imagine, the backlash was, well, it was swift and it was fierce.
So you gotta ask, right? Why? Why bring religion into it now? What does that even mean for the US strategy? Because believe me, this one move has made things so much more complicated, not just internationally, but inside the US government too. And you can just see the chaos it caused internally. I mean, we're talking about a serious rift in the administration. You've got the White House pointing fingers. President Trump apparently blames Hegseth for starting the whole war. The Pentagon is desperately trying to walk it back, denying any religious angle. And now, word on the street is that Hegseth's job is hanging by a thread. So yeah, this isn't just a war overseas anymore. It's a full-blown political firestorm back home. Okay, so while all that political drama is unfolding, the military has its eyes on a very different prize. Forget the words, forget the rhetoric. The US strategy is laser-focused on one tiny but incredibly important piece of real estate. We're talking about Karg Island. It's America's big gamble to win this thing.
So why is this little island so important? You have to think of it like this. It's the economic jugular of Iran. It's the main pipeline, this central artery that pumps almost all of Iran's oil money out to the rest of the world.
And get this, we're talking about a staggering 95%. Think about that for a second. 95% of their crude oil exports go through this one island. So if you can capture it, or even just block it off, you've basically turned off the money tap for the entire country. It's a massive strategic choke point, and it is the absolute key to the US plan. And taking Karg isn't just a single win. It's a strategic jackpot. For the US, it's like a 4-in-1 deal. First, you cripple Iran's economy. Check. Second, you stop the money flowing to their proxies, groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis. Check. Third, you put a serious dent in China's energy supply, since they're Iran's biggest customer. And fourth, you get a powerful military staging ground right on Iran's front porch. Game changer.
But it's not that simple. Of course it's not. Iran has an ace up its sleeve, a defense system so incredible, so well hidden, that it basically laughs in the face of American air power. They call it Patal-Lok, which translates to the underworld.
Now, when I say underworld, don't picture some simple bunkers. No. We are talking about massive, interconnected missile cities dug deep, deep inside mountains. And they're built for one thing and one thing only: to take a huge punch, a massive first strike, and then come right back with a devastating counterattack of their own. And here's where it gets really crazy. Look at these numbers. America's biggest, baddest conventional bomb, the bunker buster, can dig down about 60 meters. That's pretty deep, right? Well, Iran's missile tunnels are reportedly buried up to 500 meters deep. That's just a mind-boggling difference. Your standard bombs, they might not even scratch the surface. And just to be clear, these aren't just holes in the ground. These are high-tech military fortresses. They give Iran what's called a second strike capability, meaning they can always hit back. They've got rail lines inside to shuttle missile launchers around so you can never be sure where they are, and the whole thing is protected by the solid rock of Zagros Mountains. It's where they keep pretty much their entire missile arsenal, from ballistic to hypersonic. So because the US can't just take out these underground bases with a simple airstrike, the war couldn't be contained. It started to bleed across borders. It's like a virus, spreading, reigniting old fights, and turning the whole Middle East into this incredibly dangerous and unpredictable war zone. So what happened? Well, what started as a head-to-head fight quickly got more complicated. Iran essentially activated its network of allies in the region, what we call proxies. Suddenly, you had Hezbollah firing rockets into Israel from the north. Then, the Houthis in Yemen opened up a whole new front from the south. It turned into a total nightmare for the US and its allies, who now had to fight on multiple fronts. And I mean, just take a look at this. It really shows you how far this has spread. You've got attacks hitting US bases in Iraq, Jordan, the UAE. We're seeing strikes on critical infrastructure, oil refineries in Israel, even a water plant in Kuwait. This isn't a simple, localized conflict anymore. This is a regional firestorm. And it's not just spreading on the map, the battlefield itself is changing. We're moving into new domains. It's not just about bombs and missiles. The war is going digital. We're talking cyber attacks, with reports of Iran hacking into Israeli security systems. And at the same time, those strikes on industrial plants, that raises a whole other terrifying possibility: chemical warfare. So where does that leave us? Right here in the middle of a deepening quagmire. It really seems like the initial U.S. strategy is falling apart. Alliances are starting to look shaky, and the stories coming from both sides, they're more contradictory than ever.
I mean, look at this. It's a tale of two completely different realities. On one hand, you have the US saying, hey, a deal is possible, talks are happening. On the other hand, Iran is saying, what talks? There are no direct negotiations, and their demands are illogical. You literally cannot be on more different pages.
And all the while, the effects are being felt back in the U.S. People are seeing it at the pump. Gas prices are way up. The war itself is costing billions of dollars. And, as you'd expect, public support is dropping, which is hitting President Trump's approval ratings. The pressure is definitely building at home.
At the same time, that international support system is starting to fray. You have reports that Israel won't join a U.S. ground invasion. Spain is saying, no, you can't use our airspace for your attack runs. Even a peace offering from Pakistan got publicly rejected by Iran. When your allies start backing away, you start to look pretty isolated. So that's the big question, isn't it? Where does all this go? You've got Iran's defenses proving to be incredibly tough. You've got their allies spreading the fight all over the region. Diplomacy is basically dead in the water, and key alliances are getting weaker by the day. The situation is just incredibly dangerous. And maybe the real question isn't about who's going to win this thing anymore, but whether anyone can stop this firestorm from burning completely out of control.